Jai Mahamaya Ki Jai Vishveshvari Mata Ki Jai. We'll continue with chapter 31 from the Devi Bhagavatam retold by Ramesh, Menon. The original Puranic, my Guru Vedavyasa said, even the Gandharvas and Apsaras who took sweet song and seductive dance and sent to Vritra's mountain returned to Indra without swerving the Asura from his penance. Vritra sat for 100 years in dhyana, and one day four-faced Brahma appeared before him riding a swan. Brahma said, "Ask me for a boon, Vritra, of the greatest tapasya, and it shall be yours." Tears of joy in his eyes, the Asura prostrated himself before the resplendent Creator and said humbly, "My Lord, I am so fortunate to see you with my eyes. You know my heart, knower of all. You already know the one desire I have, to be immortal. So grant me, Brahma, that I cannot be killed by any weapon that is solid or fluid, or with any of stone, metal, or wood, or any astras of fire or light. Grant me this boon, Lord of the worlds, and I will conquer the Devas and rule from Amravati." Brahma said, "Child, arise, the boon you want is yours," and vanished before Vritra's eyes. Vritra went in joy to Vishvakarman and told him about the boon he had. The father embraced his son and cried, "Now kill Indra and rule the worlds. I still see your brother Trisira's gentle face before my eyes, and they cry out to me for revenge." Vritrasura gathered an immense army and set out to conquer the Devas. As they marched under the lead of their new emperor, the demons raised their voices, and their shouts shook the heaven and earth. Indra trembled to hear that sound. Quickly, he mustered his host of light against the Lokpalas, the other Devas, and their legions. Soon a pitched battle was underway. Weapons of every sort flashed in the sun in scarlet blood as limbs and heads were hewn off thousands. Each moment, roars and screams were as common as the air the two forces breathed. The battle swung one way and then the other, but looming like a mountain over the Devas' army, awesome Vritra was indomitable. The Devas' fiercest weapon glanced off him like bits of straw. He mowed down entire legions with his weapons of fire. The demon had the better of the Devas. Gandharvas and Kinnaras perished in thousands, and their mellifluous death cries ringing over the grisly battlefield. Then, forging his bloody way through the thicket fray, Vritra was upon Indra himself. In strange fear, Indra stood rooted and helpless before his enemy, as if his sin of killing Trisira paralyzed him. Vishvakarma's stupendous son seized the lord of Amravati. In a wink, he ripped off the Deva's golden armor and cast it from him, and yawning, opened his great mouth. Vritrasura swallowed Indra whole. The Devas saw this and fled in panic, crying out to the king's name. They ran to Brihaspati and cried, "Guru, rescue the thousand-eyed one from Vritrasura's belly. Use any kind of sorcery that you can. Hurry. Indra may already be dead." Brihaspati replied, "Indra still lives in Vritra's belly. We shall have him back alive." With that, he began to intone some powerful mantras that came into his mind, and at that moment, mantras he had never known before. When Vritra heard that occult and potent chant, he yawned. It was the first time in creation that any creature yawned. Helplessly, the shining Asura yawned and yawned, hardly knowing what he did, but unable to stop himself. In a flash, Indra flew out of his belly and fell on the ground before him. It is told that since then, all creatures have begun to yawn, gods and demons, men and animals. They fought again, the Devas and the demons. Vishvakarman's Asura's son, big as a mountain, and Indra, lord of the Devas. That battle lasted a long time, some say 20,000 human years. But at last, Vritrasura prevailed. Indra and his devas were vanquished, and they fled from Devaloka, leaving the demon masters of the three world in Amaravati in the glittering Sudharma. Vishvakarma's son sat on Indra's ruby throne that the worlds worship. His chief asuras were given the task and the powers of the gods who had fled. Every treasure that belonged to the devas now fell in the hands of Vritrasura and his demons. Squadrons of fabulous vimanas, untold gold and jewels, the sacred elephant, Kamandenu, and the Prajapati, best of all, the exquisite apsaras were theirs, and all the delectable women of heaven. They also had a mystic share in every yagya across the three worlds and became immediately powerful. The shattered devas fled into exile and hid like beggars in remote wildernesses where the demons couldn't hunt them, in secret caves and mountains of the earth, and in tiny parts of the deserts, and in forbidden forests. Great Indra, Surya, Varuna, Agni, Vayu, Yama, Soma, and the rest. Vritrasura's power and majesty swelled day by day, and with it his arrogance. He kept his father beside him, and Vishvakarma was richly consoled. Grief hardly touched him anymore. After an age, centuries of roaming the outer ways, one day the devas gathered, the rishis and the Gandharvas and the other disposed celestials. They decided to take their misery to Lord Shiva and seek redress from him. So they came to Kailash, the lonely mountain that stands in the north of the Himalayas like a great pearl or a full moon fallen onto the earth. They climbed to the middle reaches of the white and precious mountains and prostrated themselves at the feet of glorious Lord Shiva. The Mahayogin stood before them in eternal hermit's guise, emerald cobras coiled around his ash coat and emaciated body like ornaments. Abjectly, Indra said, "Ocean of mercy, Deva, Lord, what shall we do? Vritrasura has driven out us from Devaloka, and we wander the earth like beggars. The Asuras is swollen with pride, and the world falls swiftly into darkness and anarchy. It is time Vritra died, Mahadeva. We are shriven of our vanities, and I have paid for my sin. Restore us to our proper kingdom." Shiva said mildly, "Let us see Brahma before us and invoke Narayan, the blue one, and we'll find a remedy for you, a way to kill Vritra." Shiva summoned Brahma with just a thought, with the four-faced creator as their chief priest. The devas began to chant the Purusukta slokas that invoke Lord Vishnu, who is the savior of the ones of light throughout time. In a while, Vishnu stood before them dazzling. He said sweetly, "Lords of the world, what makes you call out to me so fervently? You, Mahadeva and Brahma, you and you, the devas." They did not answer, but stood silent. Vishnu said again, "Tell me what else, you devas. Perhaps I can ease your sorrow." Shiva now said, "You know all things, Vishnu. So you know that Vritra has vanquished the devas and seized Indra's throne. Help the Suryas now. They have no one but you to turn to." Vishnu mused a moment, then said, "Vritrasura has been born from fire, and he has Brahma's boon. He will be hard to kill without some deception. We must first pretend to make peace with him. Then, when he is lulled into a false safeness, kill him. Go to him now and agree to terms he wants. Make a friend of him, and when he believes you are no longer the enemy, but his willing subject, even his dearest friends, kill him. Devas, when the moment arrives, I will enter Indra's Vajra myself, so Vritra can be killed. The Asura has become a tyrant. He must die." The Devas agreed readily, but now Vishnu said, "Before anything else, you must worship the Devi Bhagavati. Only if she blesses you can Vritrasura be killed. The Devas took themselves to Mount Sumeru, the golden mountain at the heart of the world, and they worshipped the Devi fervently. One day she stood before them entirely enchanting, full of love and light. Her skin was softly ruddy, like the blooms of the Parijata. She wore radiant silks, unworldly ornaments past compare. Hers was a presence of infinite grace and mercy, and she spoke to them in her voice that was the most beautiful one they had ever heard. Why have you come to Meru, Devas? Why do you worship me like this? For what boon? Indra said humbly with tears in his hands, Devi, Vritrasura tyrannizes this world. He has made a living hell for our lives. Bless us that we may kill him. She smiled, bewitching them, and said simply, be it so. With that, she vanished like a bright mist. Glowing with the Devi's blessing, the Devas, the Rishis, the Gandharvas, and all the others with them now went off to Amravati, to the Sadharma, where Vritra sat on Indra's throne. The Asuras blazed like a white fire of Yagya. He was so splendid, it seemed he may consume the whole world, and the Devas with his luster. The Rishis of heaven then said to Vritra, Lord of the worlds, greetings. Great Vritra, how radiant you are. How boundless is your majesty. Everything is perfect in your life, glorious one, except your enmity with the Indra. We Munis urge you to rid yourself of that final fear. Both of you have no peace of mind for this enmity. Both of you sleep ill at ease for anxiety of the other. The wise say that when the time comes, a noble enemy makes the best friend a man can have in life. Years have passed since the last battle. You, Vritra, are master of the worlds. Let there be peace between Indra and you, and thus let there be peace in all creation. Let the Rishis go back to their tapasya in serenity. Let there be harmony once more in the three worlds and among all living creatures. Indra seeks refuge in your grace. He seeks an end to enmity. He swears to accept whatever terms you choose to impose to have peace. It is the truth for which the stars wheel round in the sky, and the sun, the moon, and the planets. The earth rests upon the truth. The sun rises for its sake. The wind blows for it. For the truth, the oceans are contained by their shores. In the name of that truth now, let there be peace and everlasting friendship between Indra and you. Great Vritra, share your dominion with him on whatever terms you are pleased to dictate. Having heard the divine Rishis out patiently, Vritrasura said, You are Munis and never speak falsely. You are serene and investigate the hidden cause of all things before you arrive at any conclusion. Yet, precious ones, the wise say that an intelligent man never makes friends with a shameless, licentious, and evil person, especially an enemy who is a murderer. Indra, whose cause you have come to plead, is all of those things. He is a scoundrel, a villain, and it is only because your hearts are so innocent that you speak on his behalf. But I say to you, Munis, the one who you speak for is not worthy. He is a treacherous and a serpent. The Rishi said, every being in creation must reap the fruit of his karma, good and evil. A treacherous man must in time suffer for his treachery. But Vritra, what do you fear from Indra that you will not make peace with him? We have told you that you may lay down any condition you choose, and Indra will honor them. Speak your mind freely. Tell us what you want, Deva. What you want from the Devas. With no hesitation, Vritrasura said, Let Indra and his Devas swear that none of them will kill me, by day or by night, or with any weapon that is solid or fluid, or with any astra or fire or light. Then perhaps we can speak of having peace between us. The Rishis agreed at once and fetched Indra. The Devas swore a solemn vow before the Munis, with Agni as his witness, that neither he nor his people would try to kill Vritra by day or by night, or with any weapon that was solid or fluid, or with any astra of fire or light. Vritra was strangely moved to see Indra thus humbled. The noble Asura rose from his throne and impulsively embraced his old enemy. He naively imagined that all would indeed be forgiven and forgotten between them now. On his part, Indra went out of his way to ingratiate himself with his newfound friend. Indeed, on a few occasions he offered excellent counsel to the demon emperor and won his trust gradually and effectively. Like any good spy, Indra lived the role he was now playing. At times he himself wondered whether he did not truly love Vritrasura, his master, as his dearest friend. The strangest, most intimate relation grew up between the Deva and the Asura. Soon Vritra could not do without Indra's company, and even Indra felt lost unless he was with his friend. They roamed the worlds together, and slowly all mistrust between them evaporated, and the simple-hearted Vritra would often say that their first enmity had only been so that they could come together like this later in perfect friendship. They roamed the Nandana together. Together they were side by side. There were no secrets Vritra kept from Indra, and uncannily Indra found himself telling Vritra the most intimate things about himself that not even his wife Sachi or Brihaspati knew. They were inseparable. The Deva and the Asura and everyone marveled at how nature had been subverted by his strangest friendship. Vritra forgot how long Indra had been Lord of the worlds ages before he, the Asura, was born, and Indra watched his friend carefully for any signs of weakness, and truly, like a serpent, waited for a chance to kill him. One day, Vishwakarman called his son and said, "Don't trust Indra like this. It is unwise ever to trust a man who has been your enemy, one you have vanquished in battle. You don't know Indra as well as I do. He was treacherous enough to enter his own mother's womb and cut up the child nestling there with his vajra. Indra is only waiting for a chance to kill you and have his throne back. Ah, my simple-minded child, he is shrewder than you think. He fawns on you and pretends to be a loyal friend and minister to you, but he is only biding his time. For Vritrasura's time had drawn near, and he ignored his father's counsel. He kept Indra beside him as his most trusted friend. He took the Deva with him everywhere he went. Then one evening, as the two friends stood on a pristine and solitary beach of the earth, with only the wheeling, screeching gulls above for company, Indra felt a powerful intuition that the moment had arrived to kill Vritra. The Deva saw it was neither day nor night, but then he must also find a weapon that was neither solid nor fluid, and not an astra of the fire or light either. He looked out to the smoky sea, into which a scarlet sun had just sunk. Indra saw great blue-green waves roll ashore, one after the other. He saw the silver foam that created them. Vritra stood some distance away with his back turned to Indra, gazing out over the sullen tide. In a moment, Indra invoked his adamantine thunderbolt. Silently he called out to Vishnu, and swift as a thought, Vishnu entered the Vajra and transformed into a weapon of foam. Indra worshipped the Devi, who blessed that Ayuda and infused it with his own Shakti. Indra raised the weapon of foam, neither fluid nor solid, nor one of light or fire, over his head. It was the twilight hour, neither day nor night. Earth and sky fell hushed. The very waves stood still. Sensing mortal peril, Vritra turned to face Indra. With a terrible smile, the Deva cast his weapon of foam at Vishwakarman's son. A jagged streak of lightning, thousand-jointed, crackled out, livid from Indra's hand. A clap of thunder like the end of the world rang out. The foam Vajra struck Vitrasura squarely, and he fell like a mountain, a fount of blood issuing from his chest. Great Vritra fell, half in and half out of the sea, and the waves turned scarlet as far as the horizon. Indra would never forget the last look in Vritra's eyes, one of disbelief, and also such grief that Indra had betrayed their friendship. When Vritra fell, the rishis, the Kinnaras, Apsaras, Gandharvas hymned Indra. Indra knew that, without the Devi entering the Vajra of foam as Shakti, Vritra could never have been slain. Not even Vishnu's power could have quelled the most magnificent demon. The Devas installed an image of the Devi Bhagavati, made from a single enormous ruby in the Nandan, and worshipped her thrice a day. From then, at every sadhana, the Devi was called Vritra Nehantri by the knowing, for Indra himself knows that without her Shakti, Vitrasura would still rule heaven and earth, said Vedavyasa to King Janamejaya. Jai Mahamaya ki jai, Vishveshwari Mata ki jai, Bole Baba ki